Hi everyone, and welcome to this very special episode of the Everything Bases, episode 100. And unlike the other videos in this series, this is not a full VOD. This is going to be a quick base tour, so you guys can see what we've done over the past about 1300 cycles, or 115 hours. And hopefully this gives those of you that don't watch the VODs an idea of all of the cool stuff we've been up to. Now the point of the Everything Base is to try and have a go at basically everything in the game in one go. And that also includes doing all the achievements. So, in order to be able to do that, because we need this planetoid for the geothermal heat pump. But one of the other main goals was also to try and colonize every single planetoid in our system. So for this base tour, I'm going to go through them one by one. So starting off with our first series planetoid, this map is more or less done, although there is some Alveo Vera that we haven't quite finished. So let's jump in and have a look at all the individual bits that we've achieved here. And I'm going to start off with the base area, which should take 8 dupes in total. As you can see, we've fully decorated in some absolutely horrible patterns, and we have a nature reserve ladder pole area down the middle and a full working kitchen, and that most suits the rest of the map to keep our dupes safe and working. Then on the right side we've got our SPOM and power generation to supply oxygen to the base and to the rockets above. Now this base also comes with some ranches for floxes and mammoths. Of course these are in the right ratio to feed each other sustainably, and these aren't really part of the endgame plan for this planetoid, but they both work so well together that I've just kept them. And of course they fed our colony from quite early on in the game. And then just above the base we do have one of our final food sources, the paku. And the food source for this base is mushroom quiche, which is why we need the eggs. And so heading below the base, this is where the rest of the ingredients are grown for our mushroom quiche. Obviously, the mushrooms and the waterweeds. These are all wild planted in the right amounts, and they just make loads of infinite food for our colony. Coming to the top left of that, we do have the Biobot builder, which is also in action 24/7, fed by the 9 spore kids because we only had 9 and not 10, which are feeding zombie spores into the machine. And again, these guys aren't really necessary, we really have enough dupes to cover everything, but it's the Everything base, so we've got them going. I mean, why not? And for more points of interest, we've also got the Somnium synthesizer going, which is really powerful actually. I currently have 5 dupes which are providing dream journals, although we have run into a bit of a bug which we can exploit. Where the Somnium synthesizer gets flooded, it then doesn't consume anything but still keeps giving the buff out, so that doesn't seem intentional, but it works to our advantage, so I'm not complaining. But anyway, I provided a little living area for our 5 dupes, including food that's delivered, and its own dedicated SPOM to provide oxygen. And just quickly looking at skills, this is why the Somnium synthesizer is so broken, because with the maximum aptitude buff, we can basically give our dupes every single skill, and the low morale penalty is entirely countered by the maximum aptitude. So that means our explorers out in space have every single skill and work really damn quickly, so it's actually an amazingly powerful buff when you can get it running. And then back to points of interest, we do have the geo vents and geothermal heat pump building running. Currently it's only being fed by 10 kilograms per second of cycled water, but it still provides a whole lot of power for the colony, so it's pretty cool. And I should quickly mention our geothermal heat pump, which is of course sending steam to our geo vents. We also have some armor trees below it and a very useful pip creche, where we're just sending some overflow eggs from our pip branches. No particular reason, but they're pretty useful all things considered. And the last thing I wanted to cover quickly is the space area, where we've got 1 rocket here currently, but room for 4 which are going to our outer planetoids, as well as a load of solar panels that are providing a little bit of power, plus some interplanetary launchers to send resources around, and a diamond press to make some more diamond. This is quite an important area because we have done a lot of rocketry in this playthrough, and this planetoid is basically serving as the launch pad for all of those missions. And on the topic of other planetoids, let's jump to those now. And jumping onto our second planetoid then, this is, or was, a rusty oil planetoid. And I say was because really we've strip mined most of it out, as you can see. Now this planetoid is mostly finished, but we still have some wild farming to do, which we're in the progress of right now. But starting off with the base area, it's probably the most striking thing in this base. And as you can see, it's obviously the mushroom shape, which of course is my logo, and also mirrors the shape that I made in the Luxury Hotel series, but in a smaller version. Here again we've got room for 8 dupes, with everything they need to survive in comfort, including cooling. And just to the right of the base we have some grub branching, and this is mainly to provide grub fruit for the mixed berry pie we're making on this planetoid. And of course in order to feed the grubs and the grub fruit, we're going to need sulfur. And the reason why I use this planetoid is because it's the only one with the sulfur geyser. This gets pumped out from the geyser and then cooled by a cooling loop, and then is shipped off to the ranch with the conveyor loader. There's also a natural gas vent here too, which is feeding our kitchen. And I must say this area was quite difficult because it was entirely covered in lava when I started. So it did take quite a while to solidify that, dig it out and deal with the heat. But now we've done that, we've got access to all of these cool resources. And of course another important resource on this planetoid is oil, obviously being the rusty oil planetoid. Now there are quite a few oil reservoirs on this planetoid, but currently we're only using 3 and then we're pumping this into our petroleum boiler. And speaking of that, here is the very troublesome petroleum boiler, which has quite a few breaks throughout the episodes. This system isn't running on a volcano, but is running on a thermium aquatuner, and it did also take it then a bit of time to get set up. But since it's been working, it provides a load of power and petroleum for our rockets, as well as a sustainable water source, so it's pretty good. Just ignore the gravestone in the middle. And of course, to go with our petroleum boiler, we need an industrial brick. So this is a carbon dioxide brick, and we're collecting the polluted water at the bottom. And of course, with the heat and the carbon dioxide, we've got molten slicksters here, providing a load of food that aren't actually in the plan, to be honest, because of course they don't feature in mixed berry pie. But I thought you may as well have them to deal with the carbon dioxide anyway, so here they are. And also with the petroleum generators, this also gives us a ton of power for the base. And then last up, as you can see, we're mid-progress on some more wild farming, and as I mentioned, this is to go with the mixed berry pie, so of course we need bristleberries and sleek wheat. So those are going to go in this space very soon. And onto planetoid 3, we have the radioactive planetoid. And as you can see, there's quite a lot going on here too, and I would say this is actually the first planetoid that we've completely finished, and so now I'm basically just leaving them alone, which means the tubes here could just chill however they want. Again, we'll just quickly start with the base area, complete with its own horrible wallpaper that I've put in, and again we've got a nice nature reserve through the middle and space for 8 tubes, all living very comfortably. Now of course the main power source for this planetoid is the nuclear reactor, using a standard build with our 10 steam turbines. We've also got a little natural gas geyser on the side, with an infinite storage there too, just to bring that into our kitchen as well. Now because this planetoid has so many metal volcanoes, plug slugs are an obvious choice, and I'm not necessarily using them for anything specific, but it's the everything base so we need to have them, so we do. These guys do add a little bit of power and meat and hydrogen, none of which I really need, but we have it anyway, so why not? And speaking of metal volcanoes, here's a couple just on the side of the base. 1 cobalt and 1 gold, which just provide us with an infinite source of refined metal, which is pretty nice. Okay, and so below our base, we have wild farmed notch sprouts and pincher pepper plants, and these are sustainably making the food for this planetoid, which is spicy tofu. And again, this is all cooled and heated and automated, so the dupes don't really have to do anything here, it just arrives in the kitchen for them to make. And then finally in the space biome, we have our meteor shower system, which catches the oxalite meteors, and then digs them up to be used in the base. If we needed it, which we don't really. We could do. But that's it for all of our inner planetoids, so let's have a quick look at the 6 outer planetoids, starting with the water one. And onto the water planetoid, as you can see, I've made an underwater base, and this is only accessed by the transit tube to keep all the water above where we don't want it. Now this was quite tricky to do, but with a bit of infinite storage and a few pumps, we managed to move all the water from below to above to make space for our base. And obviously being the water planetoid, it's making even more water as we go along, so we have our saltwater geyser and water geyser providing a load of water. And this is all being pumped into our infinite water storage in the bottom left, which also has a spom attached to provide oxygen for the entire base. And obviously as you can see the base isn't really lived in yet, because we don't really have the food to sustain anyone on this planetoid yet. But we do have the oxygen, so that's one thing done, and the design as you can see by now is my pretty standard base design, which I like to use because it's quite regular, solves all the problems, and is quite straightforward to make and still fits everything in. But again, on the topic of food, as you can see we're setting up for more wild farming, and we're still part way through making the tiles for that. And this planetoid is going to be taking stuffed berry, so we're going to be adding bristleberries and a few pinch of pepper plants. But like the other planetoids, there's still quite a bit of work to do here before we can get that going. Second then on the outer planetoids is the moo planetoid. And again, we're making some progress here, although there's still a lot of work to do, because we don't really have any water or oxygen for this planetoid, although we do have some food from the dying moos. One of the main things we have managed to do on this planetoid is collect up the liquid chlorine, as well as put in a little gassy moo ranch on the right hand side. Now mainly moving the chlorine was really to free up space to build other stuff, but this also helps feed the gas grass which we need for the moos. And because we're doing surf and turf on this planetoid, we will want the meat for the barbecue. And just above that we have our chlorine geyser and our pip ranch, and of course the pips are here to make dirt to feed the gas grass. So these guys have a load of arbitraries to eat, and also make some extra wood that we can use for other stuff if we want to. And at the top we've made a little orange space base, although as you can see there's a lot of stuff missing from this right now, but we definitely need a bit more time and some more resources to actually finish this one off. But it's taking shape. And I suppose the final thing of interest on this planetoid is the rocket tunnel, so we're going to be using a steam engine to make steam, to make water, to make oxygen, and try and use that as the main oxygen source for this base. That's quite ambitious, so we do need to boil some water first, but once that's done, hopefully we can make a sustainable water source for this planetoid. And of course it wouldn't be the everything base without a rocket tunnel. Next up then is the superconductive planetoid, and as you can see we have done a little bit of work here, but not too much. Now my goal here was to try and freeze this planetoid solid so we can dig it out and use the resources, instead of pumping the magma into space or just getting rid of it somehow. Now this has been running like this for a couple of hundred cycles, so it's taken quite a long time, and it's still not even finished yet, but it's getting there. And hopefully at some point in the future, once we finish with some of the other planetoids, we can come here and start work building another base. Number 4 is the regolith planetoid, and as you can see there's really nothing here. We haven't actually landed here yet because I didn't want to get everything buried in regolith after we did. And since we're so busy focusing on the other planetoids, we'll do some of those first, and this will probably be the last planetoid we get to. So still more work to do. But our 5th outer planetoid, the Marshy planetoid, is a completely different story. And as you can see, we've really built most of the stuff we wanted to for this base. As you can see in the main base area, we have some basics started, at least with some bedrooms and a washroom and a dining area, although clearly there's still a bit more work to do to get this finished. Also we do have one dupe living here constantly, so that helps move things along when our asteroids are busy. Now of course being the Marshy planetoid we do have 3 tungsten volcanoes, 2 of which here I've captured together, and the 3rd one which is above. And these have automatic cooling for the tungsten that comes out, and then it gets automatically fed into our rockets to bring back to our first planetoid to make more thermium, which is one of the main sources we can use to build things out of metal ore in the late game, as well as just being a super good material for stopping overheating. Now below the base we do have a load of arbor trees which are feeding pips, so that gives us some dirt, but the main thing we want out of here is the wood, and this is going up to the ethanol distillers at the top of the map. And speaking of the top of the map, here it is. As you can see the ethanol distillers are making ethanol which are going to feed plume squashes, and the plume squashes are going to feed mammoths to give us meat. And that feeds into our plan to make frost burgers for the dupes here and the tree. And then of course the rest of the planetoid is dedicated to the other ingredients we need for those frost burgers, mainly sleet wheat and with a bit of waterweed as well. These will get fed into the kitchen with our natural gas geyser to power the gas ranges, and then we can send that to the dupes or to the tree. Now of course experiment 52b here is our source of resin and then isoresin to make visco gel or insulite later on. And of course we have already used a little bit of the visco gel higher up. So overall something that's on the everything list as well as being really useful, which is nice. And last up in the everything base is our frozen planetoid, although it's not really so frozen anymore, because as you can see we've strip mined most of it out to put in the stuff we need. As usual I'm going to start with the base area, and as you can see I've gone with a triangle design, because I wanted each planetoid to have a bit of a quirk to it to make it a bit different and a bit more interesting. But overall this will have enough room to house all of the 8 tubes that we normally need. And of course on the right hand side you can see an overflow for glossy Dracos, which are going to be providing our plastic. And those are just the overflow to our main 3 glossy Draco ranches, which are here on the side. And what are we going to be doing with all of that plastic? Well, we're going to melt it into naphtha. And we want naphtha so we can set it to a sour gas boiler, which we can then get the sour gas out of and all of the power and water that comes with it. So overall this will be a really powerful build, but it's taking quite a long time to build, as you can imagine. And of course I should mention we have a couple of pips here down the bottom, just to provide dirt for the mealwood to feed our glossy Dracos. And then the last thing on this planetoid too is a huge industrial brick with our 4 iron volcanoes. This will also house all the natural gas generators from the sour gas boiler when it's finished. But of course we're quite a way away from that right now, and it's going to require a lot of thermium or steel to finish this brick. But as we're now working on the sour gas boiler, we'll probably turn our attention to this industrial brick fairly soon. Fingers crossed. And so that's kind of it for this quick base tour of my everything base as it goes so far after 100 episodes. To those of you that have watched along, thank you very much for being with me and part of the journey. And if you haven't and you've just tuned in for this episode, then hopefully you enjoyed all of the cool stuff we've been doing. And I certainly look forward to building even more crazy things in this base in the coming future. And of course we've still got lots more stuff to do to really call this a true everything base, and to tick off all of the things I want to do on each planetoid and get everything finished. And of course if you want to come and catch me live, I stream every week on Twitch, usually on Saturdays at 6 PM UK time, unless there's a reason why I can't make it. So it'd be great to see even more of you there as the hopefully controlled chaos continues. So I'll leave it there for this quick base tour. Thank you guys very much for watching this video and the previous 99 episodes if you have done, and I very much hope to see you in the next ones.